right.
Yeah.
Well, we're here at the Laguna Beach Historical Society in the Smith House, and we're talking to Doc Blacketer. Doc, what is your full name?
Francis Leroy.
All right, great. How long have you lived here in Laguna?
Came here in 1923. Directly across the street was my uncle's rooming house, and he lived here. And he was the whole cause of the Blacketer clan coming to Laguna Beach.
Excellent.
In fact, the whole family came. My dad bought 5 Model Ts, and my brothers and sisters and with their children, we all came at the same time. And we came into Laguna Beach and ended up on Ocean Avenue was our first street that we came down. We came down Broadway, the Coast Highway, and turned, and my dad stopped in the middle of the street at Ocean Avenue and Coast Highway, and Doc Mallow was standing out there smoking his big cigar. And he said, "Can I help you, stranger?" And my dad said, "You sure can. Do you know where Tom Sales live?" And he pointed directly up Ocean Avenue, and he said, "See those 2 big palm trees? Well, that's where Tom lives. You'll find him at home, too."
And that was your uncle then?
That was my uncle.
And what year was that?
That was 1923.
Oh, great. Okay. Now, the house that you restored here on Ocean Avenue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. What, can you tell us something about your work here? Because it's right kind of in the center of the area where you live,
Yeah.
between the canyon and the beach.
Well, man, I knew him by the name of Mr. Murphy built it. Now, he built a number of houses on Ocean Avenue. He was sort of, and he built this, and it is now known as the Murphy Smith House. The Smiths bought it from Mr. Murphy in the 20s. And would come down here for the vacation. And this was the father of the Mrs. Smith who lived into her late 80s and died in this house. And it is now owned by the bank, which leases it to the Historical Society for the use of historical features and things about Laguna. And it was completely in ruin when I came in. I had the roofs had leaked. I fixed the roof, and all the ceilings were caving in. I had to replaster all the ceilings and part of the walls. And the old lath and plaster, I just left the lath on there and replastered.
Plastered right over it.
Yeah,
Great.
so it's still like it was originally. I refinished all the floors, and of course fixed all the windows and doors, and painted the whole thing. And at a piece at a time, I've replaced all the plumbing inside because they couldn't get any water out of the pipes. The toilet didn't work.
And I see you've worked on the floors. They're just beautiful in here.
Yes. Well, I said, this is the way I started out to be an artist, and I started a family right in art school while I was going Chenard Art School. I met the kid's mother, and she was working for Buzz Cardoza, and we were married, and we started a family right away, and I wasn't a good enough artist at the time to support myself that way, so I came back to Laguna and went to work for my brothers who were in construction. One of my brothers was a general contractor and was the first building inspector for Laguna.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Now, what year did you start your family? And I think you were living in the canyon.
Yeah, 1943.
1943. Okay.
Yeah. Or 44. I don't know. We'll have to ask Belinda.
Okay. You're really not finished with the Smith House. I just want to get to the Smith House.
No, I just have a few things to detail. I'll touch up the things, but I'm through with the inside.
Okay.
I have to paint the outside when it dries up enough, and it has a cellar or a little basement in it which filled up with mud and stuff. I'll have to take that out.
That was with the flood.
Yeah, and present time I'm redoing the old garage in back. I made it look more like a carriage house, sort of, and I put a picket fence around the outside with the cover over at the gate. I thought perhaps that would make it look like it was a little more old time.
Sure, yeah. And then probably a little landscaping like it used to be out in front. It
Yeah,
looks
well,
beautiful.
we have to do something out there that's gonna take away most of the landscaping, and that is we have to build a wheelchair ramp.
Oh, I see.
And we have to go quite a ways because you're only allowed a half-inch rise to the foot.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do a funny thing out there, but we'll put plants and planters and things like that. I'll build some, so we put flowers and things and planters.
Well, good. Well, you've certainly done a beautiful job here. It's quite a credit to you and the Historical Society. Now, let's, if we could, if you don't mind, can we go back to the 1920s and Laguna Canyon?
Well, we can go to Laguna Canyon. I think what we should start is Nebraska and the farm.
Excellent.
And that's the first time I heard the name Laguna. My uncle came back to, my father had a lot of wheat stored and he lost a fortune overnight because we had 3 farms we were farming there and had thousands of bushels of wheat stored. So he lost so much money he had to sell out, and he was tired of farming anyway. All the boys wanted to do something else by then. They didn't want to be farmers any longer. So my uncle came back and he said, you should come to California where the money grows on trees. And never did find one of those trees. But anyway, my dad sold all the machinery and the livestock and the horses and things, and bought 5 Model T Fords, and all my brothers and sisters with their kids, we all came in the 5 Model T. I grew up with my brothers and sisters' kids because my mother was over 40 years old when I was born. I was the late arrival. I was the youngest of 10. And so we came down here, and of course, I told you about Doc Malone.
That's right.
That was the first shot we hit Laguna, and then we lived right up Ocean Avenue for a little while in the next block, and then my dad leased a ranch from a man by the name of Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher was a Civil War veteran who came to California and bought property in Laguna Canyon. And then we subleased some other ranches in Laguna Canyon and farmed and sold vegetables and fruit to the restaurants in Laguna, and our biggest, the man who bought the most vegetables and fruit from us was the Birds, who owned the White House. And the White House also, the Birds also owned a hog ranch up El Toro Road, almost to the top of the rise where you look over there. And that was my first time of seeing El Toro. I was sitting on the back of a wagon, and we were taking an old cow over to El Toro to be bred. And when we came to the top of the rise, my father said, "Son, look at that. That's El Toro." And there was a train pulling into the depot. You could see the smoke, and away in the distance you could see the whole thing. And I said, "Well, why is that going to be such a great city?" And he said, because the train stops there. There's a depot there. Any place you have a depot, where the city will get larger, and there'll probably be 2,000 or 3,000 people live there someday. Well,
2,000 or 3,000, eh?
yeah. And then we farmed, and I used to go to the lakes fishing, walk up to the lakes fishing. In fact, my fishing led to the theft of my first horse.
Really?
Yeah. Mr. Ritchie had a ranch up just across from El Toro on the Irvine side. And his horse was tied up at the gate, and I was tired by the time I had walked back that far from the lake. So I climbed up on Mr. Ritchie's horse and rode him home and put him in the barn. And my dad said, "Doc, where'd that horse come from?" I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, that's Mr. Ritchie's horse, we have to take him home. But anyway, that's where I found out what happens to horse thieves. We went to, Mr. Ritchie took his horse home, and my dad and Mr. Ritchie were sitting on the porch, and I was sitting on the steps, and Mr. Ritchie said, "Doc, don't you know what they do to horse thieves?" I said, "No, what?" Said, "They hang them." Mrs. Ritchie come tearing out of the house. She said, "You men shut up, and Doc, you come on in. I've got some milk and a piece of cake for you." And she said, "You can steal our horse anytime you want." My dad and Mr. Ritchie were getting quite a bang out of it. But that was the first horse I ever stole, and the last horse I ever stole.
Wonderful story.
I didn't want to be up.
Oh, that's
But
great.
but one of my jobs was to help hold the weeds in the corn and things, and my dad used to give me a nickel a gopher that I caught. So I had gopher tracks, as it said, and he would give me a nickel every time I caught a gopher. And then one of my jobs was in the evening I'd go down the canyon and get all the cows together and bring them home so we could milk. And my dad always gave me, in the summertime, I always got from 2 in the afternoon to 4 off. That was my beach time, and I'd run down to the beach and go swimming.
How far was it from your home to the beach?
Oh, about 2.5, 3 miles.
So you got your exercise.
Yeah. Well, then, we didn't have any buses to go to school or anything. I would start out, I was the last one out, and I would start out, and the next person down who lived on the Dude Ranch was Brennan McClellan, Hez McClellan. Now, he's an old surfer and made quite a name for himself in Laguna. But anyway, we'd pick up Hez, he lived on a Dude Ranch, and then we'd pick up 3 or 4 more at the Big Bend, and then a couple, 3 more on the way down, and by the time we got to school, we'd have 15 or 20 kids. And then at night when we was home, we'd come back, start out with 15 or 20, and then peel off one at a time, and I'd be the last one at the end. But you never thought about our folks coming and getting us to school or taking us to school. They saw that we got up about 6 o'clock, and we were ready to go to school, and the rest was up to us. But it was a great time. We went barefooted, bib overalls, I remember. It was just great. I don't think I ever wore a pair of shoes until I was about freshman in high school, and they required us to wear tennis shoes.
Where was high school and where was elementary school?
Well, what is the Legion Hall now on Legion Street was the school up until 1927. All 8 grades in one classroom, and then they built 2 more classrooms. We got so many people in school. And my favorite teacher was a Mrs. Madden, who taught school for over 30 years in the Laguna Beach school system. And I remember I went to war, and I came back and I started driving bus for the Laguna Beach school system. Mrs. Madden was still teaching the first grade, and I went to her in the first grade.
So that was where the elementary school is, over by the present-day Legion Hall.
Well, the Legion Hall is up where the high school,
Right.
set about where the goal posts are on this end of the football field.
I see.
That's where it's set. The Legion Post bought it for $1 and moved it down
You
to
moved it, okay.
Yeah.
Now, high school, where was high school for you?
Well, the high school, they built that as a grade school. What is a high school now? That was our 8th grade. They needed a new school because people were coming into town by then. They were coming in pretty fast. Laguna was really beginning to grow about then, in the 30s, especially. And they built that. I went through 8 grades of school in that, and then when I became a freshman, they turned part of that school into the high school. That became the high school. And the ramp that went down beside the auditorium is where we took our showers. We didn't have a football field the first year, 1934. We practiced on the concrete and gravel up above. And they started building a gym. We went to Capistrano and practiced after Capistrano got through practicing every evening. The Coach Geyer would drive us down there, and we'd practice, and we'd come back, and usually it'd be about 7:30, 8 o'clock by the time we got back, and then we'd walk home.
We're in a slave.
Yeah, and it was great. All those, it was great. Then we got our gym. I remember we had the best gym in the county, 1935, because it was brand new. And by then we had our football field. So we had a football field to play on in 35 and a gym. So we were really a modern high school by then. And 37, we probably had the best football team Laguna Beach has ever had. We weren't scorable in that year.
Really?
And we won, and but we didn't win the championship in 37. We played 2-0 to nothing ties. We won championship next year.
Who did you play that first year?
Well, we played Braille and Capistrano, Santa Ana, Orange. They weren't in our. They were in Orange and Santa Ana were in what they call. They had 2 leagues. A minor league and a major league. And Santa Ana and Orange were major league. We played Huntington Beach. And in fact, we played Orange, I believe, for the championship. We were the minor league champions, and we played Orange for the championship of the county and beat them in the Santa Ana, old Santa Ana Bowl.
I see.
That was in 39.
Yes.
38.
That's right across from the present-day courthouse, isn't it, Santa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's a bowl there now.
Yes, still is.
Yeah. But it was the old wooden
The old
structure
wooden
then. Yeah.
Okay.
And that had been the biggest place I ever played in at that time. Then I went to Santa Ana JC and played a little ball, but I didn't stay there long. I went to the Army, and my 2 nephews and I enlisted in the Army in 1939. And stayed in it through World War II.
Well, what did you do in World War II?
I was in the infantry, K Company, 15th Infantry, 3rd Division, and I missed Pearl Harbor. Did I tell you this?
Well, I'd like to hear it again.
Well, I missed Pearl Harbor by a week. I left Pearl Harbor, Schofield Barracks, the Sunday before Pearl Harbor, and came back to mainland. And Camp Roberts, I was stationed in Camp Roberts, and I was in San Francisco on leave, and we were flagged down. I didn't know that Pearl Harbor had been bombed, and we were flagged down by the MPs and put in a taxi, 6 of us. And the taxi driver said, "I am not going to take those guys clear down to Camp Roberts." And I remember the old MP sergeant, he says, "You're taking them or get your head blown off."
Wow.
We got a war going, fella.
That's something.
So he took it.
And Camp Roberts is located just above San Luis Obispo?
San Luis Obispo, yeah. Atascadero, just above Atascadero. And I was stationed there. Then that night, I was given a Jeep and 9 men. And I had patrol from Morro Bay to almost Cambria, the beach. And that was where the Jack sub came up and fired over our head into the oil tanks and back of us. In fact, they lobbed 2 shells in. They were on deck, and they lobbed 2 shells. And you could just barely see the figures on deck. And they went completely through the tank and didn't explode. Neither one of them. And by then I had my 50 caliber water-cooled machine gun in action, and I was spraying them with bullets. I don't know whether I hit any or not, but I was popping up water all around them. And they buttoned up and went down, and then I called the officers of the day at Camp Roberts on our field phone. And he wouldn't hardly believe me, and I said, well, what are we going to have, another Pearl Harbor? And boy, he right away, he says, I'll be right out there. And he'd already notified, and the dirigibles, there were 3 of them, came over and started dropping back bombs. That was about an hour later. Well, that sub was long gone by then. And dive bombers dived in the bay there. And that was, I guess, the first round fired upon American soil by the Japanese,
Is that right?
Pearl Harbor.
Isn't that something? Well, let's see, from that experience in the U.S. Army, did you go anywhere else?
I went to Panama, went all over. I went all over the country, and I went to Texas, and I married a little gal in Texas. I married one in Little Rock, and gee, I had a great time in it, but then I got hit by our own artillery, and I spent a year in the hospital.
Well, how did that happen?
Well, they zeroed the range, they plotted the range wrong and laid down a barrage in my platoon, and I ended up on a hospital ship, and the next thing I knew, I was in the States, and I spent a year in the hospital, and then I got discharged, and I went to art school at the GI Bill. I went to Chenard Art School, and I went to New York Art School, Chicago School of Art and Design.
So Chenard is in Chicago as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's the reason I came back to California, is because, boy, that old cold wind would come up off of that lake and just freeze me to death. And I said, I'm going back to where the sun shines.
So you've really gone to some very prestigious art schools in the country.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Right. We want to start talking about your art in just a minute or so, but you've intrigued me. Where did you get injured when you were in the service?
I didn't hear that.
Where did you get injured when you were in the service? What country?
Oh, we were getting ready to make the landing, and made the landing, and then proceeded to get fired on by our own, after we got landed, by our own artillery. And it was quite a deal, but anyway, I was very fortunate. I had my hearing was knocked out, my equilibrium was gone, and for 6 months I had to go down the hallway with my hands out. I was like a drunk man.
Wow.
But then they kept saying, well, Sergeant Blacketer, you'll get your hearing back. You'll be fine. You'll get your equilibrium back. It's just a nervous disorder caused from combustion. Yeah. And I did. And that's when I got that over. And I have a story to tell about one of our Laguna Beach people, Stan Johnson, here in Laguna. He played second base for the Chicago Cubs. In fact, he played in the World Series that year. I can't remember what year it was, but he played. But anyway, I was at Deshaun General Hospital in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Chicago Cubs came out and dedicated our baseball field there. And Pep come running out on the field, and I got up in the stands and I hollered, "Hey, Pep!" And he stopped right away. He said, "I knew the minute someone said Pep, they were from Laguna." He said, "Sure they don't, they call me Stan in the lake." And so he came up in the stands and got me, took me down and introduced me to all of them, and introduced me to the manager of Pittsburgh Pirates and both teams, all the people on both teams. And the manager of Pittsburgh Pirates says, anytime you're in Pittsburgh at Fenway Park and want to see a ball game and we're playing there, you go to gate, I can't remember the number of the gate, but gate so-and-so, and you tell them to call the dugout, and I'll okay you getting in. You come down and sit in the dugout.
Great.
And I used to go into the ball games all the time, and it was just great.
What a wonderful story.
And of course, then we came back to Laguna. But to get back to our historical stuff, living in Laguna Canyon in those days was just out. Living in Laguna was just out, because no matter where you were at noon, the people would call you in to see you. That's the way they got their information. They'd hump the kids, see. So they'd feed the kids in turn for information. No matter where you were in town, where you were sure of a lunch.
Oh, that's great.
It was great. And this over here was Mr. Brown lived on the corner, Mr. Brown, and then my Uncle Tom lived next to it. Mr. Brown lived where the Bank of America is now. Mr. Brown and my Uncle Tom owned the ballroom down there.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. and they used to be there. I remember they danced, and they had name bands in those days. Boy, in the 30s they had name bands that were just great. The late 20s. Tommy Dorsey, all of them played there.
The skating rink, was that right nearby as well?
The what?
The roller skating rink?
Yeah,
yeah.
That's where that was the ballroom.
Okay, so it was one and the same then?
Laguna Beach Ballroom.
Okay.
And then it became a skating rink, and then it became a bowling alley. And it was a bowling alley for many years, and I can't remember what year they tore it down and started buildings and things. But and the main beach was so great in those years, and we had all the history of Laguna. When I stop and think about it, the names. We had a Mr. Coronado who lived up at the end of Ocean Avenue, was the doryman and built dories for everyone along the coast, and he was a fisherman too. In fact, Boat Canyon, he and another man, Verdugo, built, I think it was Verdugo, yeah. He and Mr. Verdugo built the boathouse at Boat Canyon, which is the other side of Divers. Boat Canyon Shopping Center is there now, and down at the end of it is where Boat Canyon comes out into the ocean. And that's where they built. For years, they shot movies and did all kinds of things. In fact, I remember one movie there. I don't remember the name of it, but the Vikings landed there. They had this big Viking boat, and they came in and landed there. And that was great. They used to shoot lots of movies in Laguna. And I can remember having a lot of movie people here. I used to deliver paper, the Los Angeles Evening Herald, it was called. I used to deliver that to Marie Dressler and Slim Somerville and all of those people.
So you had a lot of movie stars. Even
Oh
in the
yeah,
30s.
yeah. There were many of them here. And
Ran out of tape?
and for many years, Laguna was quite a movie place. In fact, I believe there were more movie people here than anywhere else. Had their vacation homes and their homes here. I'd have to stop and think of all the movie people that lived here, and they would come down, and then of course it was a small, and every evening the whole town met on the main beach.
And then walk around.
Yeah, for a couple hours, you
Just
sit
so-
down there talking to each other and sitting on the sand and the boardwalk and talking. It was almost, that was before you had much radio, and of course there was absolutely no TV in the 20s.
Sure.
And you did different things. And of course they had the Playhouse on Ocean Avenue, and they had a number of plays.
Maybe this is a good time to stop and change tape.
Yeah.
Let's see, where do we stop this thing here? Oh,
Well, sitting here, I was thinking about it. It's getting back to the canyon. Does this show, Belinda, these
The pictures?
Yeah. Do they show?
Yeah, which one do you want to point at first?
Well,
which
this
one?
right. Stay here a second.
Okay.
This in 1923, the Laguna Canyon and El Toro Road was like this. Jake Schweitzer's turkey ranch. And you forded the brook. That was before the flood of 32, the big flood of 32. But anyway, it had a big flood in 32, and it washed out this ditch so deep and big that they had to build bridges across.
I see.
And this El Toro Road is up this way, and then the bird hog ranch is up there. The birds who owned the White House owned the hog ranch. And this above is the Fisher Ranch. the bigger house was Mr. Fisher's house. He was a Civil War veteran who came to Laguna and then bought this ranch and a couple more.
Doc, would you mind pointing at those
Yeah.
buildings?
And this is where Mr. Fisher, and this is where we lived, right here in this little house. And then there was the garage, and then the old barn, the little barn. And this here is the vegetable stand. Now, the people who would be come down here on vacation and weekends and things would stop and buy vegetables for it, and fresh fruit and stuff. And it was great. And then this is the, I'm trying to say it now. What ranch is it? The Dude Ranch.
Yeah.
They call it the Dude Ranch. And the reason they call it the Dude Ranch, the people who had been there a number of years before used to rent horses to people to go horseback riding. And this shows the house set back up against the hill, the two-story house, and the barn in front. And of course, these big old oak trees are long gone. I think they destroyed those in 32 when they had the flood. They had to cut them down because it washed under them and undermined them and everything, and they fell over.
And where was this, at the Big Bend?
And this is where they now walk dogs.
Oh,
Where the
okay,
dog
the
place
telephone
is now.
place.
Yeah, they've leveled it all out now, so it looks a little different. And Brenda McClellan lived on that ranch for many years. Oh, 3 or 4 anyway. And then into the 30s, 1932, my dad bought a lot in Canyon Acres. He paid $175 for it, and $5 down and $5 a month. He bought it from a man by the name of Archie Craig, who had bought, lots of property. He brought up most of Canyon Acres and a lot of property in the canyon, a lot of property in town, a lot of property in Dana Point, and Costa Mesa. He was quite a real estate man, and he lived in, Archie died about 10 years ago. He lived in Santa Ana.
Whereabouts on this map, Doc, would that have been? Just so we have it bearing.
Where's Canyon Acres is
Right about in there.
Yeah.
And where was your first home in the canyon?
It's off that map.
It would be up in here. I don't.
It's way off the top of that map.
Way off the top, okay.
Yeah.
I don't see it on this map.
Okay.
But it would be about 3/4 of a mile this side of Elbow Road.
Okay, well, that's a good bearing.
Yeah.
And this would be Main Beach, right?
Dr. Hemmel, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
His dog and cat hospital is there now.
Okay.
Animal hospital is there now. Just at this side of it. It'd be up in there. But we moved in that, and then there was a Mr. Love living in Canyon, and he lived in a water tank. He made a house out of it. And Mr. Love, everyone said he was batty as could be because he talked about going to the moon, people going to the moon. And he said, someday people go to the moon, and I remember my dad used to say, he's crazy as can be, don't listen to him, Doc. But he'd tell us kids' stories about outer space and the stars, and very fascinating man. And he was, he wore a jungle hat. For some reason or other, a certain type of people wore these jungle hats and leather leggings. Just shined, and the shoes shined, and then riding pants, and a white shirt. And he had a beautiful white beard. And he was a heavy-set man, and he was wonderful. He always walked to town and back. And he'd carry his groceries in a little sack. And then some of the people began, the canyon began to change then in the 30s, a lot. By 1934, there at Canyon Acres, there were a lot of people living in Canyon Acres. And then we, of course, in the 20s, while we used to go and visit people all over town, and one of the people we remember was a old Frank Kuprian, who was an artist and a concert pianist. Actually, he made his money as a concert pianist in Europe. But he used to call us in off the beach, and he lived right at the end of Bluebird Canyon, where Bluebird Canyon comes out on the Coast Highway. He lived straight out on the beach there. He had a beautiful big old home. In fact, it's still in existence. It's moved down there, Sunset Beach there. But he used to tell us stories, and oh my gosh, and the artist I can't even think of all their names that used to live here. They'd come here and they'd travel all over the world, and they'd come back and they used to talk to the kids here. And they'd come to school sometimes and give a little critique about France or Germany or Italy, and about art and things like that. It was quite an art community. And I was fortunate enough to be in the first Festival of Art.
Is that a fact?
It was down here in the alley. It was the next alley over between Ocean and Forest Avenue.
Now, tell me something. With your really great art background, going to some really good art schools, did Laguna influence you, or did you have art in mind before?
No, on Ocean Avenue, when we moved there, we lived there about 6 months, I would say, when we first came, and there was an artist lived next door to us. And I was intrigued by his drawings and things, and of course, I was only 7 years old or 8. And he got me started. He'd give me a piece of paper, and I'd watch him draw and paint, and I was just fascinated by it. And so I started drawing and doing those things, and little carvings with a pocket knife and things like that on my own. And then when I went to high school, why, I majored in art and did a lot of artwork, and I did stuff for the yearbook and things like that. And I always wanted to be an artist. I've never quite reached that point yet, but I'm still trying.
Well, your artwork is beautiful here, and so historic too, because you captured historic buildings and places. This is so nice.
Well, that's the thing. I have about 6 or 7 paintings I want to do of the canyon yet, of back in that time as I remember these things. And, well, I'll do them, and so we can have them as a part of history here.
Well, I think that would be very important.
Yeah. I've made money through my art, quite a bit of money through my art. I would say, at times I would make half my income, but then I get back into construction, and I'm just not the type to do 2 jobs, but I'm always drawing. I do try to do 3 or 4 drawings a day. And that's like playing the notes on a piano, you know. It keeps you going, and I enjoy that. And then I remember I went to school, and I started the high school, and of course we just had our 60th reunion at the high school, and that was wonderful. There were 9 of us there off the original football team, and we lost. I think we lost six or 7 people from the high school up here at Pearl Harbor.
My word.
Yes.
High percentage.
Yes, a very high percentage. But they had all just enlisted in the Navy, and were all stationed in Pearl Harbor, and 4 of them were on the Arizona.
Oh boy.
And they all lost their lives. And that's quite a thing, and it gives you, to know that so many of your class gave their lives. And there was Junior Goff. He joined the Canadian Air Force, and on his first mission got shot up, and he brought his bomber back and landed in England, but he lost so much blood that he died.
And Goff's Island is named for his family, is that it?
Yeah, Goff. Yes, his father was on Goff Island.
Goff Island, sure.
Yeah. And Mr. Goff was a plumber. Yeah. Okay. And Junior also, I knew he would be a flyer because we almost killed him. We built plane, an airplane. We were just little guys then. We built an airplane out of a box and put wings on it with 1 by 12 for the wings, and put wheels on it, and put him on the garage roof with a rope tied to it, and he got in it, and we pulled him off so he'd fly. Well, he didn't fly. The poor kid, he'd been about 4 months in bed. Almost killed him. Can you imagine a 2-story plane? Pull him off the edge of the roof, he went boom. Didn't fly at all.
No, I can
So we gave up building airplanes. And some of the things, you talk about things that we had none of the diving equipment you have now. We made our own diving helmets out of a 5-gallon bucket. We cut the bottom out and then a place to go over our shoulders and then a hole in them and put taped glass in that so you could see out of it. And then we'd take a tire pump and have a garden hose and tape that tire pump on the garden hose and tape it into the helmet. And, we didn't dive very deep, maybe 6 feet or something like that. If anything went wrong, you just pulled the helmet off and come up to the surface of the water. But it was great fun.
I'll bet it
We'd
was.
go to Divers Cove,
And I'll bet
get
you,
off of the rock, yeah.
I bet you had a lot of fish
Oh,
out
we had
there.
a lot of fun. Yeah, you just see someone pumping it. And the bubbles coming up, you all right?
Beautiful. Oh, that sounds like a great
And then another thing we made, we took 5-gallon cans. They used to have lots of 5-gallon cans, they'd have syrup in them and, for the restaurants, and they'd have all kinds of things in the 5-gallon can. We used to take those 5-gallon cans, we'd take 2 cans and we'd take 2 1x6s and put down, and we'd put a can on each end of the 1x6. They'll probably be 4 feet long. And then you'd sit between the cans with a paddle, and you could get out in the breakers and paddle. And man, these little breakers would take you to where we go.
Sounds like great
Oh,
fun.
they were great. And I lost a number of friends here, too, to the water. Leland Stewart was killed right out here on Main Beach. He had a dory, and a wave hit him and knocked the dory all over him and broke his neck, and it killed him. And Brennan McClellan's brother dove out near Abalone Point there, in fact, right off of Abalone Point, and went down, and a rock moved and pinned him under, and he lost his life. And there's so many accidents that happened. I was very fortunate. I never managed it, and I worked when I was going to high school. In fact, Jake Schweitzer, who owned this ranch, used to pick me up at the end of Canyon Acres.
Really?
And he would pick me up every morning, and we'd go to take me up to school, and we'd clean the classroom before school started. Then I would go to school, and then I'd practice football or baseball or whatever sport in. I love sports. And then at night, I worked at the Laguna Theater as an usher. Those days, everyone that came in was ushered to a seat with a flashlight.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, I had a uniform, beautiful uniform. I guess that's why I enlisted in the Army, because I liked uniforms.
You like uniforms?
Didn't make much money, and also that's where I had to get, when Social Security come out, I remember I had to get a Social Security number so if I wanted to keep working there. And that's where I got my first Social Security number.
Right.
I have a tough time remembering my social, but I can remember my first rifle number, 22730, and I can remember my serial number when I went in the Army, 6580310.
That's great.
But I can never remember my Social Security. I guess I don't look at it long enough.
Sure, yeah.
But, and then of course, things really began to change in Laguna, I think, in the 50s. From the middle of the 50s on, that's when the developers come in. They developed they started developing houses up on top of the world. And before they did that, there were 3 gum groves on top of the world. One right back to City Hall, clear up on top of Temple Hills, and then one, the next one where the school is, and the third one was way over. They called them the 3 gum groves: the first gum grove, the second gum grove, and the third gum grove. And we used to hike up there all the time. And I remember we used to go rattlesnake hunting. Yeah. And we'd catch some biggies. Boy, there were some big ones. And they're still up there. I went motorcycle riding. It's been a number of years ago. I think about 6 years ago I took a motor with a friend of mine, had an extra motorcycle, and he said, come on. And so we rode up through there, and we rode over to where the old rattlesnake cave is, and it was just loaded with rattlesnakes.
How about scorpions and things like that?
Old scorpions, but one of our favorite things to play with when I was in the lower grades in school, it seemed like every kid wore big overalls, carried around horn toad.
A horny toad?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I can remember setting him up on the desk, and he'd turn up, and he'd see kids all over, and the teacher'd get mad at us and make us put them away. Put those things back in your pocket right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then we would go out and catch pollywogs out where the football field was.
Oh, gee. That's great fun.
Yeah, those days will never be here again for Laguna, you know. I sometimes stop and reflect, and I thank God I lived when I had, because you might say I came from, we didn't even own an automobile when I was a little teeny guy. We went to town on a horse and wagon, and to Seward, Nebraska. In fact, that's where I saw my first radio, was in Seward, Nebraska, was the, I think it was the Dempsey-Tooney fight.
Oh, my.
One of them anyway, I'm not sure of that, but it was in the 20s, and it was before 1923, because every farmer in the country was in the town square that night, and up in front of Blankenship's store was this great big old radio with a huge big speaker on it. They were running it off a car battery, I remember that, to get the juice to run it, and they announced the fights, I remember. I think maybe it was a Dempsey Purple fight. I don't remember which. But and speaking of El Toro Road, I used to run out that thing to El Toro back when I was boxing every morning.
Oh, you were a boxer?
Yeah, I boxed. I had 70-some fights, and I did a lot of boxing.
Where did you box?
I boxed at the old Wilmington Bowl.
Wilmington.
Yeah, they had what they call the Wilmington Bowl. That's where I fought in San Diego, I fought in San Francisco, I fought in Pittsburgh, I fought in New York. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you had a lot of competition at all those locations.
Oh, I fought some good boys.
Ah.
But my last fight, when I quit, it wasn't my last fight, but I remember in the 30s, it was my last fight in the 30s. I had to wire home, after the fight in New York, I had to wire home to my father for enough money to come home on. And that's when my dad said, Doc, why don't you give it up? You're not making any money. You're going to get your nose. And I had my nose broken, and I had to have it straightened out, but it was way over to one side. And that's when I decided to quit. But when I went into service, I started fighting in the service on the teams. And then when I was in the hospital, I needed some extra money, and I went to Pittsburgh and got lined up with a fight. And I fought in Pittsburgh about 5 times, and I made a little extra money that way. They were paying a little more money in the 40s than they did in the 30s. The 30s, well, I think I fought in every tank town between here and New York.
Isn't that something? What an experience.
Yeah. I was a good fighter. I broke both my hands in one fight.
Really?
I was only stopped twice, and broke both my hands in one fight, and cut eyes in another fight against a little old guy named Hustlin' Hank Armstrong.
Hustlin' Hank Armstrong.
Hank Armstrong. He became a preacher.
Huh.
I saw him years later in Los Angeles. Hank Armstrong was the only guy to hold 4 championships at once. Featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, and middleweight. He held 4 championships. He was a champion of 4 weight zones at once. He's the only man to ever do that.
And what weight rank did you have? Middleweight or?
I fought Hank at 155 pounds.
155. So what is that considered? Middleweight or?
Yeah, middleweight.
Middleweight, yeah.
Yeah, they call it light middleweight now, but it was middle. You didn't have lightweights and heavy middleweight, lightweights, and all of that. Now they have so many more, and then they only had 1 champion too in the world. And the champion of the world was champion of the world.
Sure. Now, when you were fighting, your parents were living here in Laguna.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can we talk about your family members in the canyon, brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and so forth in the canyon and in Laguna too?
Yeah. Well, I still have 2 relatives, my 2 nephews, my brother's sons are living in, both of them lost their house in the fire. Jimmy and Virgil, they both live in Canyon Acres. They're both living in trailers now. Virgil's house is being rebuilt, and Jimmy is having a lot of problems with his insurance company that won't pay off. So he's suing them. But I had at one time the Blacketers fill the canyons, but they've all moved away except Jamie and Virgil and I, and of course my children, Belinda and Jared and Marindell. And I had one other son who is dead now, Howdy. Howdy died of AIDS in York, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it was oh, what a terrible disease. What a terrible disease. Yeah. Blacketers now, there aren't too many of them. I have a lot of nephews. I have one nephew who's a farmer out near Marietta.
Marietta Hot Springs.
Yeah, Hot Springs. I have a nephew that lives in Vegas. And my brother just died last year who lived in Bakersfield. And so I'm the only remaining one of this, the clan of the In fact, there aren't too many of the original Butch that came from Nebraska. I have a niece, I have 2 nieces and a nephew still alive that were with that Butch.
Now, your name, Doc,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Because that was
Doc,
being used very
Doc,
long.
my first name is Leroy, and there was a Dr. Leroy in Nebraska. And he used to make house calls, and the kids started nicknaming me Dr. Leroy. And pretty soon they dropped the Leroy, and it was Doc from then on. No matter where I'd go, I'd see someone that knew me, and they'd holler, "Hi, Doc," and it'd be Doc again.
That's wonderful.
So I'm so used to it now that, but we're going to have a real doctor in the family. My granddaughter is in medical school now, Belinda's daughter, Bethany. She's in Davis. She's in her 2nd year of medical school.
Wonderful.
Oh yeah, that's great. I'm so proud of her. Proud of all my kids. I have a great family, just a wonderful family. And the Blacketers are quite a family, because when we first came here, I and my 2 nephews could lick anyone in town. I did on a number of occasions. Oh, it was so great. Yeah, I think of the things that have happened in Laguna, and like in 1932 now, we talk about the flood. This place was covered, the floor was covered with mud and water. Belinda had to clean it out.
This floor
Yes.
we're on right now.
1932, with the way they have things built now, we get a wall of water come down. I saw a wall of water come down the canyon 3 feet deep. They had a cloudburst at the lake. Now, with the extra runoff from that freeway and all that building out at the end of the canyon, downtown Laguna would probably have 3-4 feet of water all over it. because then they had what they called a slough. It's covered up. Right back here was a slough.
That's right.
And we had rafts. We poled up and down it in rafts when we were kids, and we caught mud turtles. And oh, gee, it was something else. You see, this Laguna was before they started settling here. Was the lagoons.
Like
a big lagoon in
The
here.
downtown
Yeah.
was kind of...
Yeah, they called it a lagoon, and that's why they called it a Laguna. And then they gradually filled it in, a lot of it. And, yeah, the slough was just great to play in, especially the rafts. My gosh, we were pirates, we were everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd make a raft and then pole it up and down there. And it's wonderful the way it is. I'm not putting down Laguna the way it is. It's still a wonderful little town. But those things just can't happen the same way again. I guess, and the way they are now, probably in 30, 40 years, it would be impossible to do too. God knows what this earth is coming to. Thank God Laguna's got this green space around it.
That's true.
It's
Speaking
helped.
of that, did you know Mr. Dilly?
Mr. Dilly and I were very good friends. In fact, in my drinking days, Mr. Dilly and I used to hoist a couple at the... Mr. Dilly was a wonderful person, and Mr. Dilly always impressed me because he was so learned, so well educated, and so well read. You couldn't verse any subject that he didn't know about. Of course, that was his business too, in the library. And he was also very concerned about the canyon and the things that were happening. High rises. Mr. Dilly was always speaking for the environment, for the betterment of the environment.
So he was very successful in getting that green belt started and getting
Mr.
things...
Dilly is probably, as far as I know, is probably one of the, you could almost call him the father of the environmentalist of Laguna.
I see.
I'm sure there were a number before him, but he was more outspoken and did more to preserve things than anyone else. He was very concerned.
Yeah.
He spoke about what we should do so that our children of today and tomorrow will have more green space to inherit, more for the animal.
Sure. Well, he certainly was very successful over the years.
Yes, yeah.
How about Howard Wilson? Do you remember Howard Wilson?
Howard Wilson, I went to school. Howard, I'm pretty sure Howard finished his high school up here, at the high school. That's where I remember him, at the high school, more than anything else. Now, Howard and I used to play sandlot ball right down here. We had one of the vacant lots, that's where we played our sand, and we had a plumber by the name of Chris Glenny. He's the one that owned the ball. And if things didn't go his way, he grabbed his ball and went home. That ended the game. So we listened to him. We tried to do things according to the way Chris wanted things done.
I see.
Yes, and Chris was really one of the old timers. I remember at track meets later on when Chris would be one of the judges for the races or something. I remember him getting in a fist fight in Newport because someone picked. He was supposed to pick second place, and someone told him he was wrong. And they ended up in a fist fight, and I remember the police had to come break it up. They fought all over the infield in a high school. Can you imagine? Here's two adults at the high school sport game fighting, and Gar was sitting there holding his head. He said, "Oh my God!" Geyer is the one that Geyer Field is named after.
Field, sure.
Coach Geyer came to us when I was in the 6th grade and started coaching us. He would take us down, and I guess that's one reason we had such a good football team and baseball teams. He'd take us down on the sand and the soft sand in practice in the summertime. Wasn't supposed to, it was all illegal, but he'd do it anyway. He'd sort of stand by and watch, yeah. And I remember talking about the beach again, it was more the center of the town meeting place because they had a croquet court, they had a basketball court, they had the bars, the parallel bars, and then one of the early people was a guy named Guy Skidmore. Called him Guy Skidmore. Skidmore's owned the first water company of Laguna. They furnished water for years for Laguna. And Guy Skidmore was a beach nut. He could walk from one end of the main beach to the other on the boardwalk on his hands. And did quite often. And did flips and all kinds of things he would teach a kid. But Guy was a great big guy, and he would wore bib overalls. And you'd see him coming with an inner tube stuck out of his pocket, some baling wire. He'd wrap it around his waist, cinch it up so that it wouldn't fall off of him, and a piece of redwood in the other pocket, and his pocket knife. Now that's the way he fixed the water leaks in the line that went through town. He'd take and cut a redwood plug and sharpen the point and put in the hole, pound it in there, cut it off, and wrap it with the inner tube, put the inner tube around it, and then take the baling wire and cinch up on it, and he would stop the leaks. But it got so that the water pipe all over town looked like a water fountain. So they finally formed the Laguna Beach Water Company and took over, and poor Guy was out.
What were those pipes made of? Do you recall?
Iron.
Iron.
Yeah, they were iron pipes, yeah.
Now, speaking of Main Beach, earlier you mentioned that people went down there during the evenings and they walked around. So this was really kind of like a European type city center where people would just walk and socialize and so forth. It's great.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I remember my first experience, I guess I was almost an outlaw because my first experience with the courts and the judicial system was Gabby Cravath, our first judge. Gabby Cravath was a home run king before Babe Ruth. And then he came here and became a judge. But Gabby was something else. And I remember I turned over a back house and Abe Johnson, the chief of police, caught me. And he hauled me down and threw me in jail and said I was going to spend the rest of my life there. He said, I'm going to go out here on the beach and throw these keys away right now, Doc. Of course, and so Gabby came in, and he says, and Abe says, I think we ought to hold court right here, Gabby. And Gabby came over to the cell. He had about 10 kids in that cell. He caught all of us. And Gabby says, well, I can suspend their sentence. I can make them dig it. But he says, what I'm going to do, tomorrow morning I want to meet all of you right here. You're going up there and we're going to dig another hole for that outhouse, and you're going to set that outhouse on it and clean it up. So we had to fill in the old hole and dig a new one for the lady, and they still had outhouses, I remember.
Sure.
But the plumbing was coming into its own, because that was one of the things in high school I did, was help dig cesspools.
I see.
And one of my forts is my dad had taught me how to cap them over. Pull them in, at the top, and then so that you could cover them with dirt. And they'd always call me, they would, to cap them over. And I made some pretty good money when I was in high school capping cesspools.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then, of course, they brought in the sewer, and that did away with the cesspool.
Sure. I get the feeling that early Laguna, let's say 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, people kind of took care of one another, very kind to one another and helped each other out with different things. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes. Well, you were a smaller community. You knew everyone in the community. And when someone was having problems or couldn't work, you knew about it, and people helped. You know, they'd bring groceries, they'd do this, they'd do that, and go out of their way. And the older people, they'd go to the grocery store for them and things like that. But you didn't have this rush, and you didn't have, of course, you didn't have the traffic problems you have today.
Sure.
As we first came here, Coast Highway did not go through.
Where did it stop? Newport?
Stopped out just this side of Emerald Lake.
I see. Oh, okay.
And there was a gate across there. And you could go to Newport by the coast, but you'd have to stop. It was more of a wagon path than it was. And the same way with going to Dana Point. You'd have to stop and unfasten the gate, and it wasn't a very good road. It was just a wagon path, all it was. So then they put in Coast 101. And that, I think, was in 1927. I can't remember exactly. 1927, I believe they put in. But I remember them doing it. They didn't have all the heavy equipment they have now. Mules. They did most of it with mules, scrapers and mules.
Yes.
Move on.
Yes,
And they'd
scrapers.
blast. Yeah, they'd blast, and then they'd take those mules.
Sure.
Of course, I can remember using those scrapers. I had help building houses and things. Earl C. Dreyer, he had a place up in the canyon, and Mr. Holt was the head mule skinner for him. Mr. Holt, when I came home one time on furlough, Mr. Holt was coming up the canyon, and I met him. I said, "Hi, Mr. Holt," and he shook hands. I reached up the wagon and shook hands. He said, "Well, Doc, this is the last time the wagon goes on." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, This is it. They're doing away with the mules.
Is that right?
Earl's getting a tractor and stuff, and will no longer have mules." He said, "And I'm quitting." He was in his 70s then.
You know, I remember people in San Juan saying that they used to get in buckboards and go up to Santa Ana and do shopping. It was so far with horse and buckboard that they had to stay over. Did you have a lot of buggies, horse buggies?
Well, no, they've just changed over. We had a buggy on, but we never used it. We used wagons.
Okay.
But I remember going to Santa Ana now on to the movies on weekends. Now, Santa Ana's where all the farmers went on Saturday night. And I remember, and the big thing about it, I remember about those movies, most of them were serials, and they always end up to be continued. They get right at the most exciting part and stop. So you had to come next week to see what the hell happened.
Saturday. Oh, that's great.
Great. Yes.
Well, how about some other personalities in town that you recall? Now, we talked about Tony Forrester a little while ago. He was actually born here in town, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's something I didn't know. I knew him in Capistrano.
Okay.
I knew all the Forrester family. Not real well, but I knew them to say hello, and I used to see them. And the Forrester girls. And what is her name? Doris?
Oh, I don't remember.
I think her name was Doris. The last time I saw Doris, she owned a bar in Dana Point.
Oh, really?
And of course, they owned lots of property. They owned a Forrester Ranch in Capistrano. And then, I'm trying to, Lobo, of course I knew Chief Lobo.
Clarence, yeah.
And I used to talk to him a lot. in Capital.
So you used to go down to Capistrano for shopping or what?
Oh, you just more of a visit than anything.
Social.
And then when I became, I remember in high school we used to ride down there and roast each other, you know, like Laguna against the Capistrano kids. But we were all friends, really. I mean, we never got into fights and things. We just kidded each other. And they would come to Laguna and do the same thing. Because Saturday night then the big thing was hanging out downtown
Sure.
on the street corners, and or go in and get a dime malt, or you got a malt then and a hamburger for a dime.
Isn't that something?
Oh boy, I'll see. Well, you went to the show for a dime, went to the theater for a dime. Colburn. Now I remember Colburn Bakery. They were one of the old families. Now, you never did interview Ted Colburn?
Nope, never have.
Well, the Colburn family was an old Laguna family, and they had a bakery. And my dad tore down their bakery when they quit baking and built a house out of it in Canyon Acres.
Oh.
And Ted is in a home now. I understand he's very ill, and. Gosh, the Woodwards, he was one of the first fire chiefs for Laguna, D. Woodward, one of the first fire chiefs. He's also the sanitary engineer, because we had a thing in high school where the kids take over and do the jobs of the city for one day, you know.
Oh, nice.
Well, I became the fire chief and the sanitary engineer under Mr. Woodward, and I almost turned the darn fire truck over. I went around the corner too fast. He said, "That is your heavy equipment. You can't do that, Doc." Yeah. I went with his daughter for a while, Woody. And then, oh gosh, there's so many people. The Twymans built one of the first houses in the canyon, and they lived in L.A. and they'd come down, and then the Twyman boy and I used to play in the Grove, and then they moved to Laguna, and gosh, the Jarrises, of course, I've known them, and in fact my dad charged to build our first house in Canyon Acres. He charged $75 worth of lumber. He went in and he said, "Joe, I don't have any money, but I need some lumber." He said, "Well, get what you need, and then what can you give me?" And Dad said, "I can give you $5, $10 a month." He said, "That's fine."
And that was Laguna lumber.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jarris. Yeah.
So my dad ended up with big payments. He had a payment on a lot of $5, and he had a payment at the lumber yard of $5 or $10, whichever he could afford.
Boy, isn't that something?
Yeah.
How about Bill Thomas? Was Bill Thomas someone who was here?
Yeah, Bill Thomas, the photographer. Yeah, I remember Bill when he first came to town.
Ah.
He owned down where the main beach is. He owned the camera shop down there for years before he moved up here on Ocean Avenue.
That's right.
Yeah, Bill's. Yeah, he's quite a big fan, Bill. And these names won't come to me now that I want them.
Oh yeah. Well, you mentioned
Bill Shields.
Bill Shields.
Bill Shields, Mr. Shields owned the first hardware store in Laguna, and Bill ran it. Bill became a carpenter, and then when his father retired, well, he took over the hardware store and ran that until his death. And his son now works for plumber, and works as a plumber. And you talk about the president coming through town.
Exactly.
I think it was 1936.
1936. FDR.
Yeah.
Delano.
FDR, I remember him coming through there, and he had this big long cigarette holder, and I remember him coming through there, boy, just, and the people just hollering and yelling, and talk about that. I made a cartoon of that.
Really?
With FDR. I don't know where the cartoon is because I gave it to Chris Valenti, who was a plumber, the ball man, the man that owned the football.
Sure.
Well, Chris was a plumber, and he was sitting right down at the corner of Ocean Avenue and the Coast Highway when FDR come through the town. And I remember him sitting there, and the other plumber in town was Benson, Mr. Benson. And between them, they had this great, big, huge dog who sat higher than either one of them did. And they were both sitting in Chris Valenti's truck. Mr. Benson crawled in beside Chris and sat down, and this dog was sitting. And I made a cartoon of Mr. Benson and Chris Valenti and the dog. I even made the dog waving as an FDR coming through with this big limousine in the touring car. The top down.
That was a big day in the town.
Oh, that was a big day. My God, we must have waited hours for him to show up. Yeah, he came all the way down the coast, I guess, through Long Beach and clear to San Diego.
Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
Then he was back again in 1942.
Yeah.
Went down to San Juan and Camp Pendleton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other politicians that came through that
Well, we had our own local politician who was Northeast West, Mr. West, and they called him Northeast West. N.E. West was his name. Now, what the N.E. stood for, I don't know, but
I see.
but they called him Northeast West. Yeah, it was funny, right? And my dad always thought every politician was a big crook. You know, I'm not so sure he was wrong. But I remember he used to say, that Northeast West. He was one of our supervisors. He was supervisor for years and years and years. My God, he must have been supervisor for 20, 25 years in Laguna. And, yeah. And he was our big politician in town. Of course, Gabby Corbett was one of our heroes because he'd been a home run king before Babe Ruth.
That's right.
Babe Ruth set the record after he did. I don't know, he was a home run kinger for many years. And I remember he was going to play on the team, the town team, and they wouldn't let him. They said, no, he can't have a professional play. Whoever was going to play wouldn't play him because they said, no, you can't have a professional on the team. But the baseball field used to be out at the Big Bend in the canyon. That was the only place level enough in town.
Now you were talking, speaking of leveling, you were talking about when they graded the land for the high school, I think it was.
Yes.
They graded that, and you.
They uncovered a number of skeletons, and if I remember at the time, of course I was pretty young then, but my interests were in other things. I was watching girls by then, but anyway, they uncovered a number of skeletons, I know, and they had to take them somewhere to rebury them, and I don't know where and what happened, and I know that there was a lot of criticism about it.
That was
Yeah,
in
but
the area.
not so. They uncovered more where the tennis courts are.
Oh, okay.
There, and they figured that was and a number of artifacts too when they graded it. But I don't know. The laws weren't quite as strict then
That's
and
true.
stuff.
That's true.
And
Well, speaking of that subject, when Howard Wilson found the Laguna woman, do you remember that?
yes, I remember that very plenty. And my gosh, he was sort of like the hometown hero for months.
That's great.
Yes, for finding
Sure.
a scout. And I remember the next year, a sculptor made the first head of the Laguna woman, they called her, didn't they?
Yes,
He made a head, a study of the Laguna woman. not just the skull, but the whole features and everything. And I remember, my gosh, it was, he made it look, I think, too old, and I think the criticism of that was it looked like an ape more than it did a Laguna woman.
Sure. Yeah.
But that, and they displayed it at the festival grounds.
Oh, they did?
Oh, yes, they had they had a booth all set up for the Laguna woman. Yeah. And you know where that is now?
Where the find was?
No, where the Laguna woman's head is now?
Gee whiz. Maybe Howard still, kept it in storage or something like that, but I know it went to
No, it must be in a
UCLA.
museum somewhere.
It went to UCLA and other places, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering where it was, because I'd love to go see it now. I'm
Sure.
more interested in those things now.
Yeah. Well, it went, I guess, from what he said, it went at one point to Europe and into UCLA,
Yeah.
maybe even Scripps, so it certainly made a big circuit.
Yes.
Well, how about any important artists that you recall?
Well,
Yeah.
one of our important was Mr. Babcock. Mr. Babcock did seascapes and other things, and he was in every festival that I can remember for years and years and years. And Mr. Rock.
Mr. Rock.
Mr. Rock was great, and they have a painting by him in the City Hall now. That's a beautiful thing of the hill back of the City Hall, and when the City Hall was a woman's club, he did a painting of that, and it's one of the most beautiful paintings I've ever seen. Mr. Rock was had a building company and a real estate company. He was partners. Rock and Mackey, it was called. And they built houses, contracted to build houses, and they also sold real estate. But he was one of our very prominent artists. Gosh, there's so many of them, and right now I'm speechless. I guess I'm getting senile.
No, you're not. Not at all. Not at all. I'll tell you what, we have all these nice pictures. You think we could go through each one and
Yeah.
I could hold one up if you want, and then...
All right, I'll let you hold them up, and I'll tell you. Now, this shows the Bird Building, and next to it is Jolly Roger, where the Jolly Roger is down there on the corner, and then the next block down would be the Birch Cafe, and the Bank of America, the new Bank of America, clear down at the end of the street. You can see the
Way down there.
last building. That was the new Bank of America they built while I was in the service.
Okay.
They built that.
And since then, it's been other things.
Yeah, it's, yeah, a
Okay.
bank. And this is the main beach, and this looks like the main beach when I came here. Yeah, the houses down.
1950 photo.
Yeah, was the saddest thing. That hurt me more than anything else, seeing tear down all of that, the historical structures down there.
And the
When the
boardwalk.
city bought it, yeah, when the city
Yeah.
bought it, they tore down, bulldozed all of those down, homes and everything.
Oh, I remember that. That was in the early 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What
That
a
just,
shame.
that hurt me more than anything that's happened in Laguna.
Yeah.
It was as though they disregarded everything historical about Laguna, and because that's where Laguna started, right there on that main beach.
That's quite a history. That's the same beach where people used to camp and so forth.
Oh,
you
yeah,
remember the
sure,
camping?
sure. We used to get named bands here on Saturday night, and they would fill the streets dancing. They did.
Right.
After they filled the dance hall, they'd open up all the windows and everything, and the music would be all over town, and people would be dancing on the boardwalk and the streets.
Okay.
It'd be just great. And of course, this is our first Five and Dime on Broadway.
And is that building still there?
Yeah, the building's still there. It's vacant now.
Okay. That's dated
After all those
1939.
years, they finally moved out.
Isn't that something?
This is Park Avenue. No, well, it's Laguna Avenue, but coming down to it is Park Avenue. Now, it looked much like that when over here was what was called Chamberlain's Cabin Camp. This was back of the Jolly Roger, where the parking structure is now, was a cabin camp. And the little cabins in there, Chamberlain's. Mr. Chamberlain run it, and Johnny Chamberlain was our center on the football team.
I see.
Yeah. And across here, directly across there, the JR would be out here on Coast Highway.
Mm-hmm.
And directly across it was one of our first post offices.
I see.
All
Are
through the
those-
30s.
Are those eucalyptus trees? in
Yes,
there?
those are eucalyptus trees. Olive tree. And this was Harvey Hemingway's homestead house, and Mr. Fisher bought it from him. And then there was a little old gal lived in it for years and years. We called Aunt Maud. Aunt Maud, the children just loved her because they loved her old house, and they'd go down there and visit her.
Mhm.
And she'd tell them all kinds of stories.
What an interesting building that is.
Yeah, that's Canyon Acres, right off of Canyon Acres Drive.
Now that building's gone now.
Yes, they tore that down too. Of course, it was ready to fall down. They almost had to tear it down. Now, this is where the festival ground is now. It shows a circus there, but that was the Johnson Ranch.
Johnson Ranch.
Yeah, there was a house. In fact, I bought that house. I paid for the house while I was in the service. My mother sent me a letter and said that my brother needed a house, and could she take some of my money? I'd been saving money ever since I went in the service in 1938.
Uh-huh.
And I said, yeah, go ahead. So she bought the house, I think, for $1,000 and had it moved for $800. And my brother out on the Big Bend, and my brother had a place to live in. But that was a Johnson Ranch, and we had a rodeo ground.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he rented horses, and also we used it as a rodeo grounds, and we'd be in a rodeo about every 4th or 5th week. We'd have a rodeo there, and that's when I learned to ride broncs. Not very well, but
Well enough.
and bucking. Yeah, and this is Forest Avenue. Forest Avenue, and then on this end of it is the lumberyard. Mr. Jarrett started a lumberyard, and directly across from that was the Benson, where Benson Plumbing. Now, the first log house in Laguna was built by Mr. Benson, who came from Norway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he hitchhiked into Laguna, and he bought that property, and he bought all the property between 2nd and 3rd Street, and it was full of fir trees. Someone had planted fir trees there. He cut down all those fir trees and built a log house for them.
Do you remember the greeter, Mr. Was it Lars?
Eiler, yes. Eiler was also a gardener. Eiler's brother was the mayor of Oslo. Eiler's brother came to visit him a number of times here. Yeah, Eiler was quite a learned man. A lot of people didn't know that, but he was very knowledgeable, read all the time, very interesting to talk to, supported himself through gardening.
I see.
He was a World War I veteran. He came to the United States and enlisted in the United States Army and went to France and fought in the First World War. And he was quite a guy. And he used to hike to Palm Springs. And the way he hiked was straight from here to Palm Springs over the mountain.
My word.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and he was put in jail one time. And I can't remember who was mayor of Laguna then, but Eiler says he said, well, who did he have for a reference? You know, he was hanging around the streets hollering at, ooh, he sounded like a foghorn. Ooh. And they put him in jail in Palm Springs. Well, he told them to call the mayor, so the guy, they laughed at him, they weren't, he said, yes, call the mayor, he's a good friend of mine. And so they did, and the mayor said, you let him out of jail right now. He's our #1 citizen. And, you're kidding. No, he's a greeter, I'm sure. Oh.
They knew the
So-
greeter was.
So then it became part of the tradition. He'd go down there and stay a month every year. And he became, back quite a while ago, but he would go down there and greet people on the corner.
Really?
Yeah, the foghorn would go there. But they tickle me, these guys trying to imitate him today. There's no person like him because he worked all the time. They didn't know that. They thought he just stood on the corner, but he didn't. He would work enough to support it, pay his rent, and buy his groceries and everything. But you couldn't miss his hello because it sounded like a foghorn. He had a voice that wouldn't quit. Ooh! You know, the trees would almost bend over when he sang, and people would think.
Did he ever tell you why he started that?
He just loved people. He tried. He wanted people to be happy with each other. He wanted them to be welcome to Laguna. And he just loved people. But he really started it not for just people, but for children. Children got some bang out of it.
I see.
He would say, ooh.
Sweet.
And the kids would shake his hand. And Belinda, now when she was a little kid, just thought he was the end of this world.
Isn't that great? Isn't it great?
Yeah. This is the same here. This is a Hotel Laguna. Now, that was still here when we came in. I think in 1927 or 28, 27 maybe it was, they built a new hotel as it is now. And I remember watching it, and I was so fascinated because they had what they called Irish buggies, wheelbarrows.
Oh.
And they had a big runway. They didn't hoist it up on elevators. They had a big runway from the bank up there clear to the top they'd built. And there'd be a man on the front would take a rope and a hook onto the front of the barrel, and there were two wheels. I don't know whether you've ever seen an Irish wheelbarrow or not. And they have a handle on them and two wheels, and with a big box-like thing they'd fill with cement, or put cement in it. One guy on the back and one in the front with a rope, and they'd run up that ramp. Just as hard as they could go, and they could just barely make it the time they got it. And that's the way they poured the concrete for the hotel.
The one that's there now, this
Yeah.
was the predecessor to that.
Yeah, that was the predecessor.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, this was quite a place. It had a porch all the way around it. And this is Tyrant's Cove, which is Abalone Point, the other side of Emerald Bay, between here and Emerald Bay and Crondell Mar, towards Crondell Mar.
And Liso School is up there?
Tyrant's Cove, yeah. Well, the school will be out here.
Okay, out there.
The school is out here, yeah. You go down through Tyrant's Cove, and then right at the top of the hill on the other side, you turn left, and that's the grade school out there.
That's right, okay.
Yeah, my
And then
little
the-
grandsons go there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, my kids went there. My grandsons are going there now.
Well,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Belinda, my oldest daughter now, had many of the teachers that I had.
Is that a fact?
Yes. It was just great.
Huh.
When she got in high school.
Yeah.
And well, I think maybe grade school was up there then when she was in grade school. I think it was, yeah. Thurston was down Thurston School.
And this is such a beautiful area.
Yeah.
And now the area north of here is the new state park area, is it not?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And this is the corner of Broadway and Coast Highway, and there were 4 service stations. Ever since I can remember, there's 4. No. Now I take that back. There were 3 service stations on there, but it used to be the Pomona College building used to be over here. Now I don't know whether I didn't see any pictures of the Pomona College building, but it was their where they did their what do you call it, sea work. They have all their they'd gather up the things from the sea and take them in there and study them. It was their lab, sea lab.
Is that a
Yeah, Pomona College.
My goodness.
Come down here and they had an old, and the reason I remember it so well, they had a big old water tank. And we took over, the big water tank was up on stilts there, on poles, and they had ladder, and we took that over as we go up through the den, and it was empty, of course, and we took that over as our clubhouse.
Oh, I see. What a great place. Huh?
Yeah. And this is Mr. Wilson's, Howard Wilson's father's store.
Oh,
Aliso.
that's something.
I remember that.
And the beach is right down below
Yeah,
there?
the beach is right
Okay.
down below it, yeah.
Wilson's
Yeah.
General Store. So
Yeah.
that's right near Aliso Creek, is
Well,
it?
you see, yeah, Aliso Creek, here's another one of Aliso Creek. Goes out here like this,
Uh-huh.
and his store was right in here or there, I think it was here.
And then where's the...
And then the road, you went down to the bottom, you didn't have a bridge across like there is now.
Uh-huh.
You go back this way back, and there was a bridge back in here,
Oh, yeah.
back inland. You went across that bridge and then came out over the road, up back to where Coast Boulevard is now. Now it goes right down and right up here.
And this area here has changed considerably, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there?
Yeah, well, they filled us all in, and now there's park here. They park
Okay.
cars here, and they park cars over here.
Okay.
And the road goes right down through here.
I see the difference. Yeah, it looks so different.
Yeah.
And the people here are camping?
Yeah. Yeah, they camp there.
Isn't that great?
And now this is the Hotel Laguna, and this used to be Nick Gish's store.
Nick is from San Juan.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nick Gish, yeah.
Okay.
He had, Nick Gish was our earliest store man, I guess, and he had $3. And he would hang a sign every afternoon on his store, going fishing.
And he probably...
And he went fishing. He'd go down on the main beach or the rocks and fish for 2 or 3 hours. And he just closed the store. He didn't lock it, he just closed it. And people, if they really needed something, would go in there and write it down on a piece of paper and take it and go home.
Isn't that something?
But nothing interfered with Nick's fishing.
Isn't it? And this is the building right in here.
That's it,
That's
yeah.
still there now.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? And it was like a hardware
They
store?
call it the Greeter's Corner now.
Yeah. But when Nick had it was like a hardware store, is that?
No, well, he probably had hardware, and I remember it as a grocery store.
Grocery store, okay.
Grocery store, but he
Okay.
probably had hardware in there too, you know. And this is the Bird's Cafe.
Now, where is that?
White House.
Okay,
That's the White House.
The White House.
Yeah, that's the White House. See, that's the entranceway and the whole bit.
Isn't that...
See, the White House used to be the whole thing.
Aha.
Now
Okay.
this end, they made a couple,
And that right there is the present day entrance
Yeah.
right there.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. What a
Yeah,
great
see, Park Avenue came down here then. When the library wasn't there.
That's right.
The library was small and set to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is Emerald Bay in early years. Not much to say about that. There's not too much was there.
Well, it's
And
a lot of open space here.
yeah, well, now there's houses all built up here. That's where the fire burnt so many out, well, Emerald Bay, the fire burnt so many of them.
Sure.
And here's another shot of Emerald Bay, and it has about Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford and Abalone Point out here. And Tyrant's Cove is down in here.
What, is Crescent Bay Point anywhere that you can tell there?
I can't see it.
Crescent Bay? Probably in here.
Yeah. Now, this is across the street from Ocean. If you went straight out from Ocean Avenue on the beach, there was a drugstore right there on the corner. And there was a restaurant here.
Mm-hmm.
And the boardwalk was here, and the lifeguard tower now sits out here.
I see.
Yeah, that'd be straight up.
And then,
But this is looking where the theater is now.
and
Yeah, this is sort of a shot, but coming out this way would be Ocean Avenue.
now this theater still is
Yeah,
there.
it's still there, yeah.
So this building would actually be right on the boardwalk then, is that right?
it'd be right on Coast Highway, and then the boardwalk was out like it is now.
Behind it, okay.
Yeah, there's two buildings. There'd be a bathhouse out this way too.
Okay, I got it.
Now, here's our wonderful old man, Frank Cooper, the artist.
Oh, isn't that great?
Wonderful
Frank
man.
Cooper.
And that, I'm sure that's down where his house was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is downtown. 2nd Street comes right through here. 3rd Street over here. City Hall's up here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Orrin Robbins, laundry. And the lumberyard mall sits all in here now.
I see.
This is,
And then the post office would be...
well, the post office would be right over here.
Right over there, okay.
Yeah. And 2nd Street come right, well, this is 2nd Street right here.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Benson cut all the trees here. Now there's where I went to Sunday school when I went. I played hooky a lot in Sunday school.
What church was there?
Presbyterian.
Presbyterian, so the church
Yeah.
is just
Yeah,
built
that's
out.
before they built
Sure.
This is the corner of Ocean Avenue, and this is the Saunders building. Now, I went to school with the Saunders son. He's dead now. And Mr. Saunders, the father, was the head bellboy for Laguna Hotel. Of course, bellboys were big things then, you know. Now they don't have one. But then Mr. Saunders was the head bellboy, and he also did a lot of the managing stuff. But he always, you'd see him all over town in his red uniform with his little cap on. And then Howard, when Howard, in the summertime, Howard would work at the hotel, and he would be a bellboy.
Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah. And she had a dress shop there for years and years, Merle. Yeah. But she's in a rest home now. And I talked to the son. I'd never met him before. I went in there and asked about her, and he said, "Well, I'm her son." So Howard's son.
I noticed this is a dirt road.
This is a coast highway. The White House is up there, and this is Ocean Avenue. Yeah, it was dirt. My dad stopped right in the middle when he saw and asked directions there. That's the first direction we had. Yeah, right there. Yeah, parked right in the middle. Of course, there was no traffic, see.
Sure. Now, there are quite a few cars here. Are these, Model A's, or what do you think?
These cars?
Yeah.
These would be the late, 30s.
Mm-hmm.
No, not late 30s, late 20s. Late 20s, I would say.
Okay.
Or maybe the middle, late 20s, because I learned to drive in a big old car like this.
Now, there are quite a few cars
Yeah.
parked there. I'm surprised
Yeah,
that there's
yeah.
so many in town.
Well, there was always a lot of people in Laguna in the daytime. But in the wintertime now, by 7 o'clock at night in the wintertime, there wouldn't be a soul on the street.
Yeah.
Now this, right behind there, was the cabin camp, Chamberlain's cabin camp, and they were going to build a building over here. And the post office used to be right here. Now the library is here. This is the corner where the library
Oh,
is.
I see. Okay.
Mr. Thurston, it says something about Mr. Thurston there. I knew Mr. Thurston. I remember seeing Mr. Thurston. He used to walk a lot. And he was a very husky, short, husky man. And when he was older, he married this younger woman, and she was a teacher at Laguna Beach School.
Uh-huh.
And they later named the school after the Thurstons. Well, here's the lakes, way up at the lakes.
Oh, yeah. Down
Laguna
the
Canyon Road and the lakes.
About 1915.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, here's at the top where Victor Hugo's in, and that's the women's club having a picnic up there.
Up where Victor Hugo's is, huh?
Yeah. Didn't look much like it now, does it?
No, it's fascinating.
Now, I did a painting of Edgar Payne's studio. Here it is. And this is Glenary Street, and Legion Street goes across here. And this is looking down the hill. And I can remember when it was like that, when Glenary Street was like that. How muddy it would get when it rained.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, here's the Laguna Beach Fire, the 19 fire in 1920. Now, they were volunteer firemen then.
Really?
Yeah. And, see, they were still volunteer firemen when D. Woodward was first fire chief. And he held a city job, though,
Now,
which was sanitary engineer.
Oh, that's
See,
right.
he had the treatment plant up there.
That's right. So they're fairly close proximity.
Well, no, it was in the 30s that I'm thinking of, because it was in the 30s, but D was fire chief, but maybe he was fire chief in the late 20s, too.
Now, there was an article just recently, it was either in the LA Times or Register, that indicated that when the fire department went out to the canyon, they stopped at a certain point and couldn't
Oh,
put
yes,
out
that's true.
fire.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. They didn't come into Canyon Acres and fight. That was the county.
Isn't that something?
I can't remember why, but they would not let them do it. And the fire, if you had a fire in Canyon Acres, the fire truck had to come from El Toro, the Forest Service. Now, here's two beach cottages. You see what I mean? When it killed me when they tore them down?
Oh, they're gorgeous. These are little board and batten there.
Yeah, a little more than a single wall construction. You could throw a cat through them, you know.
That's cute. Oh, they're lovely little places.
Yeah, well.
And were these built here in Laguna, or were they built somewhere
No,
else?
no, they were built
Right
in
here.
Laguna. Oh, yeah. Here's Laguna Beach. See the traffic problems?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Let's
people
see.
would flock in here. Boy, they just flocked in.
And this is the Cabrillo something and dancing. Is that, were you mentioning that?
Cabrillo Dance Room.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. That's what
Yeah,
you were
that's-
mentioning earlier.
Well, Laguna Beach Ballroom or Cabrillo Dance
Yeah.
Hall. Yeah, it was a Cabrillo Dance Hall. I'd almost forgotten it. How could I do that? Cabrillo Room, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, my uncle, Mr. Brown, owned it. Yeah, this is looking up Main Beach, up Park Avenue. See, here's a slough coming down through there.
Oh, yeah, sure is.
They call it the slough. Yeah, it'd be 30 feet wide in some spots.
My word. And now if you look at it, even during heavy rains, it isn't that wide.
No, they won't carry as much water as it used to. Why they ever did that, I don't know why the Corps of Engineers, Army Engineers allowed that at all.
Isn't that something?
No, it's narrower now than it was. See how wide it was
Oh,
out?
yeah, it's got a big spread.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, Heisler Park, boy, that's always been a wonderful place. We used to do that's where we used to do our 5-gallon can out in there.
Yeah. Isn't there a beach called Divers Cove? Or
Yeah, Divers, we used to do it at Divers too. Divers is right on the other side over there, just the other side of it. And then Woods Cove on the other side of that. Not Woods Cove, Boat Canyon. Oh yeah, Victoria. I was a lifeguard on Victoria Beach in 36 and 37. Yeah. The Nelsons were there.
Oh, yeah.
Ozzie and Harriet Nelson.
That's right.
I was lifeguard, and all the movie people used to come there with their kids. And not only did I was a lifeguard under the work program, not the city lifeguards. I was under the work program.
WPA?
Government. Well, it was sort of like it was a work program for kids that went to school.
I see.
So, Mr. Van Lonen, who was the principal, called me in, and I was working under that program at the high school, boy, a timber truck then. You know, there just weren't any jobs. And in the 30s. And he said, Doc, I don't know. He says, if you want to put in it and can qualify as a lifeguard, he says, you have to take the test. But you can work this summer as a lifeguard. And I got more money. I can't remember what they made $90 a month or something, and I got $100 a quarter.
Right.
Yeah. But I got. I went down there, and all the movie people would. Not only would I make more money, I'd get tips from the movie
isn't that
people.
great?
Oh yeah, I'd practically be babysitting. You know, I wouldn't be, but the kids would all be down there. I was sort of like the hero to their kids. And Ozzie and Harriet, this funny thing, they had this place in, I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, they had a home there. And years later, I went back to their place. I was to work. I was going to paint the outside and do some work on the inside, and a little carpenter work and stuff. But Ozzie and Harriet were just exactly like they were on that show. At noontime, nothing doing. You came in and sat down with their family and ate.
Isn't that great?
And the first, I said, you don't remember me. He said, you're awful familiar. No, I don't remember you. I said, I used to be the lifeguard down there, Doc. He said, that's it.
Has she recently passed away?
Now, this is across from the Marine room.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There used to be a garage there.
Mm-hmm.
You went in on Ocean Avenue and come out on Park Avenue. One sort of around the corner.
Now, when you say Marine room, where the Marine room is now, or where it used to be?
No, where it is now.
Okay. Yeah, and the same street, you can see the water there.
Yeah. And this is some apartment houses. My brother-in-law and sister stayed there.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Right after they were married. Walt Gilbert.
And that's a little filling station. There's your gas pump.
Yeah, well, it's a garage, really. You know, you went into the garage, but they also had pumps. Them garages had pumps, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what that sign says up on the hill there?
Temple Hills?
Yeah, that's what it is, Temple Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it looks
Stop
like...
and think there a minute.
Those
Yeah,
people
that's a
live-
grove. That's the first gum grove. Gum grove.
Gum grove, okay.
Yeah, eucalyptus trees.
Okay.
But we call them gum trees.
All right.
And there's Laguna, man. There's nothing up here.
Isn't that something?
That was probably my uncle's then.
1938, Main Beach, Laguna.
Yeah. I have to look at this a second. There they are. This is down about where the sawdust is now.
Oh, yeah, this is the old road, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's the old road.
Okay.
That's before they made it Broadway.
Okay, uh-huh.
Yeah, this photograph would be right over here. This photograph would be right over here in relation to this farm.
Oh, I see.
On this side of El Toro Road, see?
Uh-huh. It'd be about 1950, the Fisher
Yeah.
Ranch site.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Oh, no. Golly, that is a Fisher Ranch. I don't know what. Yeah, that is a Fisher Ranch.
Okay.
That would be. That would be this.
Up above, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Up that road. Now this, here, Elmore Road comes right out along through here.
So El Toro Road would be where? Here?
No, this was the Canyon Road.
Okay.
It would come this way.
Okay. And what do we have out here? We have corn growing on either side, is that, am I right in saying that's corn?
Yeah, that's corn. That's corn.
So we have cornfields all
Oh,
over that
yeah.
point.
Yeah, Golden Bantam Roasting Area.
Really?
Yeah. Called Golden Bantam Roasting Area.
What else did they raise out in that part of the canyon?
Watermelons, tomatoes, carrots, rhubarb, cabbage, lettuce. Well, see, then they did a lot of irrigation from this.
Uh-huh. And that was running all year round?
Yeah.
And you probably had a lot of wildlife coming down.
Oh yes, we had lots of mountain lions, bobcats, lots of deer.
Now, you mentioned mountain lions. Today there seems to be a problem, with people getting along with mountain lions.
We're taking up all their ground.
But
mountain lion, a lot of people don't know this, but a mountain lion will roam for miles.
Sure.
I mean, his territory, he'll stake out territory that will go, and they may intersect and bisect to other mountain lions' territory.
But when you were growing up, did you have a problem with mountain lions of any type whatsoever?
No problem. They used to raid our garbage and stuff.
Oh, did they?
Oh yeah, but all you had to do was slap your hands or holler at them, and they would switch their tails and take off.
And
Evidently, there was a lot more to eat.
Sure. What about other wildlife in the canyon? Raccoons or anything like
Had
that?
lots of coons, had lots of squirrels, had lots of vultures. Lots of vultures.
Turkey vultures?
Yeah. These big, there'd be 20 and 30 sometimes circling, and you don't see that anymore at all.
What about fishing, like at the lakes? Did you have any fish?
Yeah, they are little perch.
Little perch, huh?
Yeah. And not big, but little perch. Yeah, lots of perch.
So it was really kind of a wonderful little wonderland back there.
Oh, it was just fantastic. You just, there's no explaining it the way it is today. You got roads, and they're bringing in this freeway all back there, and they're just running. People are screwing up our whole country.
People.
Yeah.
Well, let's see here. We've got one more photo. I don't think we talked about this, but that's on, I think, isn't that Coast Highway right there?
Yes, that's Rankin's drugstore where the gate hangs now, out on the corner. Or does the gate hang there anymore? I forgot to look.
I don't know. And well, now this building, I'm a little turned around.
This is not here anymore.
Okay.
There's a two-story building there now.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be where Park Avenue, the White House would be over here.
Okay, all righty.
Yeah.
And that's the 19th.
The library would be back up here.
Okay. Well, gee whiz, we've spent quite a few hours talking together. This is great.
Oh,
Well,
my. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost as though we need a second session almost to complete everything, but we've probably gone long enough today, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll continue this on. Thank you so very much.
Well, it's all my
Really
pleasure, my
appreciate it.
gosh. My daughter's been going to do this for ages and ages.
Oh.
Now we have it
Well,
done.
great, good. It's been certainly a pleasure.
Was all mine, believe me.
Well, great, thanks, Doc.
Yeah.
Did you want to open the door for these folks?
No.
Looks like they've gone anyway. All right. Well, let me turn this off.
That's perfect. Didn't press it somewhere.
Oh, I see. Here we go.